everyone. Hello. It's JT from Work It Daily. Welcome to Office Hours. It's Wednesday, which means it's time for me to answer your career questions in real time. For those of you that have never stopped by before, welcome. We're so excited to have you here. Please make sure that you hit the subscribe button. That way you can always get notifications when we go live, which we've been doing more and more lately. And if you have a question today, here's how it works. You want to put your question in the chat. You want to use the word question in all caps first, because there's always a lot of chatter. So that's how I can pick it out. Just please remember that this is free. We do this free of charge every week. And we do our best to answer the questions that we can, but we don't always get to all the questions. If you want your questions answered by career coaches when you want them, then you should join our program, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. That's what we do. We're helping thousands and thousands and literally thousands these days of people find their dream job. And you do that with a Work It Daily membership, but we'll talk more about that later. So I'm going to get down to the business of answering your questions because I've only got 30 minutes here. So let me scroll up here and get started. Looks like Kimberly got on early to get her question in. Way to go, Kimberly. I got an internship at a company that I've been wanting to work for. Yay. That's fantastic, Kimberly. Congratulations. I recently got an email from another company saying that they have an internship opportunity for me. How might I go about rejecting them and asking if I can make a referral for it? Well, so first of all, I love how you think, Kimberly. That is exactly the way you should be thinking. You already got your job, but you want to build rapport with this company. You've got an internship. Who knows, maybe you'd want to do another internship with this other organization, or maybe even get hired from them later on. So the fact that they've reached out to you is an opportunity for you to start to establish rapport. One thing you learn at Work It Daily is that your network is your net worth. And so the more networking connections, the more value you can create for people in your industry, in your field, the better and easier time you'll have later on in finding work. So Kimberly, my advice would be to reach out to them and start with, I'm so excited and honored that you reached out to me about this internship. You have been on my bucket list of companies that I would love to meet and hopefully work for someday. That said, I unfortunately just agreed to take another internship already. Would it be okay if I sent your internship information to a couple of people that I think are truly qualified for the job? I won't send it to just anybody, but I do have a few people in mind that I know are looking for internships that are really talented. So the point of saying that to them is you lead with the enthusiasm. I'm so honored. Thank you so much. You're on my bucket list. You roll into, hey, I already took an internship, but I've got a couple candidates in mind for you. Can I send them? The reason I say to specify that you've got a couple candidates in mind is you want to respect the fact that they don't want this blindly sent out to anyone. Recruiters don't like to get inundated with ill-qualified candidates. So you want to express to them that you see a couple people that you think might be a fit based on their criteria. And they're really going to appreciate your selectiveness, Kimberly. So I would go ahead and do that and see what response they have. I would also, based on the response you get back, say, is it possible for me to be proactive and stay in touch with you? I'd love to learn about future opportunities with the company and see if there might be a fit down the line. So now you want to take ownership of that relationship because, they're going to go find their interns and do their thing, but you've now got an inroad and you should mark it on your calendar. And in a couple months, just check in and see how they're doing and, give them an update on how your internship experience went. This is the foundation that you need to set in the event they could hire you at a later date. Okay. So good work, Kimberly, there, and everybody else that's working on internships. That's the way to do it. Good job. Let's see. It looks like I had a question from Rob. Hold on a sec. Let me go back there. I don't want to miss. Rob P. Can you touch on 1 or 2 tips for closing the deal in a live interview? I've had a couple in-person interviews and have not been able to land offers. Okay. So even though we tell you that job search is a sales process, I'm not a big fan of the idea of closing a job interview. And that's because whenever I see people attempt to do it, it feels super salesy, really, really pushy. So we don't want to go that route. And I don't think that's what you were suggesting, Rod, but I want to be able to talk about that a little bit. The part in the role you play, I should say, the part you play in a job interview is to listen exceptionally well and prove that you're listening to the employer by summarizing what they're asking for, by summarizing what they're saying, and then giving them a response back. So if you do your job correctly in the interview, you're going to prove to them that you're a good listener, that you acutely understand what the problems are, what the pain is, that they're experiencing and why they need to hire for this position. And you're going to give them some concrete examples, some quantifiable examples of how you've solved that problem or alleviated that pain for other employers in the past. That's your job. At the end of the interview, the most important question you can ask, and we actually have a list of 8 questions you can ask, and you should watch that video. It's free here on YouTube. But at the end, you should say, can you tell me about the next steps in the process? How will you be making the decision of who to hire? And that's going to give you some insight into what's next. And again, you want to listen closely to what they have to say, because out of that should come how you can follow up with them. So you should listen and say, okay, so what I'm hearing is that it's going to take you another week or 2 to evaluate candidates. Would it be okay for me to follow up with you by email or phone in 2 weeks' time to see, get a status update and see if there's anything else I can do to further my candidacy? So again, you want to define how you are going to be proactive and take control in the next steps in the process. And that's the most that you can do in those situations. Now, one of the questions that I list in the 8 questions to ask is, based on what you heard today, is there anything about my candidacy that you wish could be improved or expanded on that you think might make me a better fit for this role? So it's a nice way of asking, do you have any gaps in your experience? And not everyone can deliver that question in the right way. So it's important for you to understand how to present it. But as far as being able to figure out where the potential no's might be in your candidacy, this question, when asked properly, can get you some of that information. The key is to ask it in a very non-threatening way. So, I've had people say when we've, mock interviewed with them, they'll say, is there anything about my candidacy that you think should be improved upon to make me a fit for this job? Did you see my facial expressions there? I mean, my goodness, my 11s were coming out with the squinty face. You don't want to be too intense when you ask a question like this, because it's a pretty serious question. So you want to, have a smile on your face. You want to have some enthusiasm. You might want to set it up with, I really love this opportunity based on what I heard so far. So I've got to ask if there was something that was different about my profile that could be expanded or improved that you think might make me a better fit. What would it be? Is there anything? And that way you're kind of nicely with a smile trying to get at, hey, am I missing anything? And so, hopefully they'll give you some information. Sometimes I've had people ask a question and they find out that maybe they thought they didn't have a certain experience or, expertise, and they're able to address it right there on the spot and say, oh gosh, well, I probably didn't bring it up, but when I worked at XYZ, I did this, and this. So when delivered right, this question can really help you identify maybe where you're falling short so that you can try to address that before you leave the interview. Okay, Rob, I hope that helps. Now, of course, I'm just going to give a shameless plug. If you're not a member of our program, you should join, because our interview prep tool is like stealing the opponent's playbook. We have an entire course on interview prep. It's one of the most important skills that most people are never taught. Think about it. Were you taught how to interview in high school? No. Taught how to interview in college? No. Any of your employers ever teach how to interview? No. Right? Interviewing is a skill. And understanding how to do it, especially when it comes to answering behavioral questions, is pretty vital. So if you're not a member, you should be checking it out, because, again, our interview prep is probably one of the most powerful tools we have in our arsenal. Can I say that? Our arsenal. So you should check it out. Okay. Let's see what else here. I'm going to go down, scrolling down here. CS says, can a potential employer via background check see if a candidate collected unemployment or was on food stamps? Wow, CS, that is a great question. I don't know about the food stamps. I don't think that you could ever find out if somebody collected food stamps. As far as unemployment, I'd have to check. That may be a state-by-state thing. It may depend where you live. So I don't have that information offhand for you. It's a great question. In fact, I'll have the team research it for you, and we'll try to circle back and post something here. I think my bigger question is, why do you care? Why should it matter that you collected unemployment? The only time that would become a concern is if you lied and said that you didn't, or lied and said you were working, and then they went and researched and found out you were on unemployment all this time. So I guess my bigger concern is, are you asking because you don't want to tell the truth? Or are you asking because you're afraid they're going to discriminate against you because you did? I mean, if you were out of work, it's important to be clear with people that you were out of work. They're going to figure that out, because if you say you were employed someplace and they go and do a background check and you weren't, they're going to catch that too. So don't know if I'm answering your question correctly, but based on that information, we will try to circle back and get that for you. Okay, good question. Stumper. I haven't had one of those in a while. Maureen says, why is it when I want to connect with someone I've met in my industry and contact them to network, they respond with, I am open to talk? What does that mean? Please explain. Well, I think if they say they're open to talk about the industry or the business, you know, the things that are going on. So it probably means they're willing to meet you for coffee or to schedule some time on the phone to have a chat. That's a good thing. It means they're an open connector. You know, one of the things that you'll learn in our program is that you should always be networking. Everybody should have a networking strategy, even if they're currently employed. And that networking strategy should be around regularly meeting people in your industry, in your geographic location, and in your skill set. And those are three different things. Now, maybe you'll get lucky and somebody will be all three, but a lot of times we have to build out our network that way. So meeting people within your geographic location, right? Other professionals that you really admire. Maybe they're not in your industry or at your skill level, but you really admire them. There's somebody worth knowing. Meeting somebody in your skill set, well, it's always good to know because you're in similar types of jobs. Maybe they go work someplace and they could refer you in. And then certainly you're in your industry as well. The people might not have the same type of job as you, but if you're in the same industry, they might work at organizations where you could work at. So it's always important to be expanding your network. If someone says they're open to conversation, then they're open to meeting for coffee or having a phone call to talk about the industry. And what do you want to talk about? Well, we, again, have a course inside Work It Daily that teaches you about informational interviews. And in that, Maureen, you're focused on things like, how do they get their job? What do they like about it? You know, what are the big trends they see this year? What are the problems they're focused on? What are the skills they're looking to build that they think are going to be relevant going forward? I mean, your job when you're networking with people is to really explore and understand their career path and where they're headed. That way, you not only will learn something, you always will learn something, but two, if you come across an opportunity where you could help them out, you could be proactive. You know, if they tell you something about themselves and then you're someplace else and you go, wow, these two people should meet. That's one of the best things that you can do in networking. When you put two people together, that's like a double whammy because now two people are grateful for your help. So, you know, that's what you want to be doing in those open discussions, if that makes sense. And of course, you know, take our interview prep and our informational interview course, and that will help you as well. All right, let's see. Stacy says, do you think it matters if you do not disclose all the federal demographic questions at the end of applications, questions about gender, veteran status, and disability? They're not required, right? And by law, companies can't ask you that information, Stacy. So it doesn't preclude you. I think that companies a lot of times do it these days, just in case you're wondering. So, you know, from a hiring standpoint, they need to prove their diversity. So if they have people who are, you know, in some of these diverse classifications, it can actually improve the chances that you get a phone call. So people don't often realize this. But a lot of companies have rules that say, hey, we need to interview X number of people from this minority, X number from this. We really want to make diversity important to us. So by asking these questions and somebody self-identifying, it can increase the chances that they would actually get a phone call. And it depends. It goes organization to organization. So that's not a unilateral thing. But, you know, for me, I think it's important to consider, you know, answering those questions in terms of your opportunities. Now, you know, will leaving them off disqualify you? No, they won't. But, you know, my general rule of thumb is to answer everything. It just, in our experience with applicant tracking systems, there's a bunch of them out there that if people leave stuff blank, it puts you to the bottom of the sorting pile. It doesn't disqualify you. It doesn't eliminate you. But if they got 1,000 applicants, the first 100 are going to be people that filled out every single field. That's a fact, folks. That's how it works. And then they sort through that. So I'm not a fan of you ever leaving things off, only because it just pushes you down the pile. Hope that helps, by the way. Again, if you've got a question, folks, you got to put the word question in all caps for me or I can't see it. Patty says, what is your take on career fairs? Useful or a waste of time? How should I prepare? Ooh, we get this a lot inside Work It Daily. So the answer is, it depends. It depends on who's going to be attending the career fair. So you always want to get a list of companies in advance, and you want to make sure that there's going to be at least 5 companies that are on your bucket list. And if you don't know what a list is, then you need to join us because we teach you how to create one. But if there's 5 companies or more that are on your bucket list, then you have reason to go because you have data on these companies in terms of why you feel connected to them, why you'd want to work for them. And this is an opportunity for you to get some face time with people who work there. Now, do I think that you're going to go and you're going to get an interview on the spot and it's going to fast track your career? No, you shouldn't go in expecting anything like that. You should go in with the idea of, I want to make a friend at the organization. I want to ask some thoughtful questions. I want this person to remember me as, prepared and excited about the organization and really getting what the company does and why. So you've got to do your homework to do that. That's why they've got to make your bucket list. It'll be easier for you. And then you leave, hopefully being able to say, can we stay in touch via LinkedIn? Can I connect with you? In the event there's future opportunities there, that sort of thing. So, just don't expect any immediate results from career fairs. That's not how they operate. And don't bother to go unless you know for a fact there's going to be companies there that you really, really want to work for. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. I get a lot of calls from recruiters, Erwin says, sometimes for the same job. How can I choose the best recruiter? Ooh, that's a great question. So for those of you, what Erwin is saying is that there are some contract jobs or some staffing agencies that have been given the opportunity to fill a job. And a lot of times companies will let multiple staffing agencies try to find them talent. So what happens to Erwin is that he gets several calls from different agencies, all pitching the same job. First of all, what I would do, Erwin, is look at your track record with these agencies and narrow it down to 2. Pick 2 that you think are the best to work with and let them know. Say, I get these calls all the time. A lot of times it's for duplicate positions. What I've done is narrowed it down. I only want to work with 2 organizations. Your company is one of them and the other one is XYZ. And the way that I'm going to do this is on a first call basis. So whoever calls me first with the job opportunity is the organization I'll go with. It shows them that you're just playing fair, and then it's going to encourage them to want to call you ASAP. So you're going to get those calls faster. That's how I would do it. And then I would stop working with any extraneous organizations just because it confuses it. If these 2 organizations know you've narrowed it down, they know that the chances that they're going to place you and get the commission on you is greatly enhanced. So that's how you can build a stronger relationship with them. Okay. And by the way, it's a great problem to have. So congratulations. You must have some serious skills, which is super. KJ says, does it look too aggressive to email hiring managers over talent acquisition and HR reps? Got to be really careful with that, KJ. Really, really careful with that. If you weren't on yesterday for the live session that I did, check that out. Yesterday, I talked about the 4 buyers in the hiring process. I've actually never done that presentation before, so I hope all of you go check it out. There are 4 individuals that are involved in a hiring process. Sometimes the person wears all 4 hats. Sometimes the hiring manager wears all 4 hats. But most of the time, there are many, many people involved, and they're going to fall into one of these 4 categories. So recruiters and talent acquisition managers are what we call technical buyers, whereas a hiring manager is going to be what we call a user buyer. So they're different buyers. The problem that you have to be careful of when you go around recruiters and talent specialists is that they feel really offended. And so they're going to make it really difficult for you to get hired because the whole part of their job is to find the right people for the job. That's the whole point. So you have to be really careful when you go around HR and recruiters. Okay. Now, the right way to do that, well, there's a process, and it starts with you developing relationships with people who work there, not necessarily the hiring manager, but peers, people that work there. Over 80% of jobs are gotten via referral. So when you network and befriend people who work in the organization, maybe the same level as you, maybe higher, maybe lower, but you befriend them, when the time comes and you see an opportunity, you go to them and say, hey, I saw this XYZ role. Do you think this is something that I might be a fit for? Would you be willing to introduce me to the hiring manager? I don't want you to, go to bat for me. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I would really love to connect with the hiring manager directly. I have a story that I want to share with them about why I feel so connected. Now what's happened is you're going in through that existing referral. It's a lot harder for recruiting to be upset about that because they've got an internal employee who is vouching for you. And that can make all the difference. Sorry about this, folks. So there's really some nuances that you need to finesse in order to make that happen. And I would be really careful with that. In fact, that's one of the things that I love navigating inside our program. So when our members get into the program and they're going through the job search plan, and we're teaching them how to work with recruiters, a lot of times they'll come to us with those dynamics, and every situation is slightly different. So what we'll do is strategize on that particular situation, who you should talk to, who you should reach out to, and when you should reach out to them. I mean, this is complex selling, folks. Make no mistake. Job search is not a simple, easy process. And the fact that people reduce it down to a simplistic state is why they don't get hired. When you understand that there's a strategy and there's some real thought that needs to go into each process, and when you have the right information, you're going to get much better results. Just like a salesperson. The more sophisticated a salesperson gets, the more skills they have, the more experience they have in complex selling, the better they are. You are the same way. And since nobody taught you job search in high school, in college, no one teaches you at your jobs, it's on you to get this information. You've got to build your skills in job search in order to know how to handle these situations as they come up, because each situation is slightly different. So, hope that answered your question. Let's see. Nick says, how much do companies value personality and critical thinking assessment tests? Are they generally pass fail? So if a company is investing in having you take an assessment test, they generally rely pretty heavy on them. You know, there are companies that don't believe in them at all. There are companies that believe in them heavily. If a company is having you take a test, then it matters. So if you're thinking, hey, this company didn't ask me to take a test, but I want to give them my results, don't do that. Don't do that. But if they ask you to take a test, then you need to take it. Now, is it pass fail? It's not so much pass fail. There's not such a thing. It's more you fit the profile we're looking for or you don't. And if a company is spending, like a company that I worked with recently was spending $325,000 a year in these assessment tests. And so they were looking at managers saying, whatever the results are, you've got to follow it, because we're spending so much money on these tests that you have to hire based on the results of the test. They ended up doing away with it because the truth was the hiring managers didn't feel like they were getting any better candidate by following these assessment tests. But if a company is doing it, they generally are expecting you to meet a certain level of criteria. And if you don't, then you're not a right fit for them. So I think the bigger question is, if you get rejected by an organization that you really, really like because you failed the personality assessment test, what you're going to need to do is befriend some people in the organization and start to find out what they look for and why they value this personality assessment so much. And also find out if there have ever been times when they've been allowed to have an exception to the rule. Because I will tell you that if you failed, it goes in your file. And again, it shouldn't use the word failed. If you weren't a fit, your results go in the file. And anytime you try to apply, they take one look at the file and go, no, can't consider you. So you've got to get around that by having conversations with people to find out the exceptions to the rule. This goes back to my earlier advice, building a network within the organization, getting people to go to bat for you so that someone will take a look at you even though you didn't fit the criteria that they were looking for. Okay? Ooh, okay. Let's see. I passed, let's see. What can be done if you have a location constraint and you cannot relocate? Not a lot you can do. If you cannot relocate, then you need to focus on employment where you are. You know, one of the things that I tell people to do is to drive around, walk around, go to every office building in your area and write down every company listed on it. I just had somebody recently do this. They live in a rural part of the United States. I said, I want you to go in the entire commutable area, wherever you'd be willing to commute. I want you to find every office park, every nondescript, kind of boring looking office park. And I want you to go up and I want you to write down, take a picture with your phone of every company that's there, go back and start researching the companies. What you find is that there's some pretty interesting companies in your neck of the woods. Sometimes there's satellite offices or, you know, there's small companies that you didn't know anything about. Then you do the research on these companies online and you can identify which ones are really interesting to you and start to build your networking that way. There are a lot more opportunities out there than we realize, but most of us are, using the outdated approach of seeing what's available on a job posting. Folks, if your number one method for finding a job is getting job alerts and going to job boards, you are missing out on the majority of good jobs out there. And you're competing against literally thousands of people. So it's literally the most depressing and time-consuming and ineffective way to look for work out there. But it's also the easiest, and that's why people do it. So I'm not ever going to say someone's lazy because people don't know any better. But once you realize the right way to look for work is something called a proactive job search, where you sit in the driver's seat and you define what kinds of companies you're interested in and why, and then you build a strategy around it. That's how you get hired at your dream company. And that's what we do every single day in Work It Daily. If you don't believe me, go over to my website right now. Go over to Work It Daily. I just posted a post. It's a letter from somebody just this week that landed their dream job. We get these letters all the time, but this one was just one of my favorites. And we asked for permission to post it. And the person said yes. So you've got to have a proactive job search. Your job search is going to take a really long time, be super depressing, and really you're gonna crush your career confidence if you do this whole looking for jobs online and applying online, because it is a total waste of your time, complete waste. Okay. So you got to be more proactive and you got to know how to do that. Let's see. What if I am more qualified for a career that I'm not excited about? Oh my gosh. Awesome question, Deshawn. So that happens to a lot of people. They build up a set of skills and it's in an area that they're just not that excited about. So the first thing that you've got to ask yourself is, why doesn't it excite you? And you have to compare it to something that does excite you. So what is it about this one area that you don't have experience in that you just seem to be in love with that career path? And then you've got to say to yourself, how do I lily pad my way over there? So this is a concept I've been teaching for 15 years as a career coach, lily padding. It's how you make a career pivot or a career change. You don't just switch lanes, right? You don't just jump over here and go. What you have to do is lily pad over. So think of a little frog. So what we do is we look at where you're super skilled, but you're not really that excited. And we look at where you're really excited, but not that skilled. And we try to figure out how you could get over there. Now, what normally happens is that we identify a company that does the kind of work that you're really excited about, but has roles that you could leverage your existing experience in. You get in there, you use the experience that you have, but at least the company, the industry, the vibe is more in alignment with what you care about. And then while you're there, you gain the experience to move yourself over into what you really want to be doing. Does that make sense? So there is a process, but you have got to be really mindful and strategic in the way that you do this. And this is why I love what I do, because people don't know how to do this. They don't know how to look at the situation and say, okay, I'm here. I want to be here. What are the steps in between? That's what we teach you how to do in Work It Daily. That's why you need a career coach, folks. If you could do this by yourself, you would have. So Deshawn, you've got to think about that and really start to move yourself over by connecting those dots and finding the interim steps that you could take from one step to the other. Okay. Awesome. Very, very good. Simone says, do you recommend applying to a company where you were recently laid off from, knowing that the company was just purchased and may have future layoffs? So I can't recommend or not recommend that, Simone. I mean, if a company has a job opening that fits you and you really like the work and you really like the environment, well, then you should pursue it. I wouldn't look at whether or not it's going to be bought or sold or what's going to happen in that respect. I think you have to ask yourself, if they've got the job posted, there's a reason why. They have a need, they're willing to hire. And I think if you get the interview, you can ask some questions around that. Tell me about the future of the company. Where do you see things going? Are there any concerns that this job might be eliminated? You can ask those questions in the interview process. So I wouldn't read too much into it. If you really like the company and you like the work, then apply. And as you go through the process, you can find out what's happening there. You know, the truth is, folks, every job's temporary. That used to be the original tagline of our website. Every job is temporary, because it's the truth. And this idea of job security and trying to find a company where you can work forever is just non-existent. Shouldn't ever think of it that way. So my bigger question, Simone, is, could you do great work there for a year? Could you learn something? Could you build a skill set? Would it give you an opportunity to earn an income while you're networking into another opportunity? These are the strategies that you need to start to pursue, right? Like it or not, folks, you're all businesses of one. You're not employees. If you think like an employee, you're going to be out of work, you're going to struggle. And as you get older, it's going to be really hard to hold down a job. You need to think like a business of one. A business is always looking for new business. A business is always thinking about how it's going to keep its services relevant so that its customers don't decide to go with somebody else. A business is always trying to understand the changes and the trends to its marketplace. You are a business of one. If you want your career to be healthy, if you want your career to grow, if you want to feel like you're in charge, if you want to feel some sense of security or safety, then you own your business of one entirely. And if you don't know how to do that, or you don't feel like you're a business of one, then you need help. Because without it, you're just going to continue to flounder and feel really just out of touch, ineffective, and defeated. And this is what I see every single day from unhappy professionals because they aren't taking ownership of their business of one. Again, go over to Work It Daily right now. Read this letter that one of our members sent us because it truly describes this whole concept of ownership. And when this person took ownership, how their entire world changed. So got to check it out. It's amazing. All right, I've got time for one or two more questions here. Don says, when you are lily padding, how much of a pay cut do you take? I don't know, Don. It doesn't always involve a pay cut, to be perfectly honest with you. Sometimes people take a pay cut. Sometimes it's a lateral move. I've even had people move over and make more money, believe it or not. Really depends. The better that you can strategize and figure out how you're going to take your existing value and apply it in the new environment, the more money you're going to make, right? So companies hire you to solve problems and alleviate pain. They're always looking at the ROI, which stands for return on investment. So your job is to build the strongest case possible about how you are going to more than justify the cost of hiring you. If you can prove to them that you're worth every penny, if you can prove to them that the money that they're spending, they're going to get back and then some, then they'll pay you more money. That is the truth, folks. That's business 101. And we need to remember that when a company hires you, it costs about 130 to 140% of your salary. So, if they were going to pay you $10 an hour, it's really costing them $13 to $14 an hour to have you on board. Just so you know, the taxes that are involved, the benefits, etc. So when you're sitting there trying to prove your value to an organization, in that case, you'd want to be able to prove how you're going to make them $15 an hour. See what I'm saying? When you start to understand that mentality and you realize that you can present that in an interview, your entire game changes. I see this all the time in Work It Daily. When people finally understand how to present their value using that formula, the entire game changes because now the employer goes, oh, I get it. I'm going to make my money back and then some by bringing you on board. I want you. That's what you have to do. So hopefully that helps. You never know. Pay cut, same pay, higher pay, totally up to you. All right. Let's see. Okay, KJ says, how far back should dates go on a resume, even if you have great companies on your resume? So that always depends. There's always exceptions to every rule. Historically, we go with the last 15 years of experience is the most relevant. But if there are companies that are really high profile that would make people stop in their tracks that you worked at 17 years ago, then I would include them. So it's always going to depend. I think that's why I love our resume service so much. So when you join Work It Daily, you watch a tutorial that's 30 minutes long that literally breaks down the hows and whys of developing a 6-second worthy resume. So a 6-second worthy resume is a resume that is skimmable by a recruiter and tells the recruiter everything they need to know in 6 seconds so that they want to talk to you. This is very important these days. It's an amazing technique. Now, once you've watched this tutorial and you've used our template to build your 6-second worthy resume, you then send it to our career coaches to review. And this is when, KJ, you would say, okay, I included 20 years of experience because of these reasons. What do you think? And our coaches are going to look at it and go, no, you don't really need it in this case. Or yes, let's make sure we get that on there. These are the kinds of questions people always have about their resume. And that's why you need a career coach. It's one thing to get a template, and build it out, but it's another to actually get feedback in your specific situation. And so that's why I love our service so much, because we do that for your resume. We do that for your LinkedIn profile. Then we look at your interview prep, your cover letters. It's those little questions that you have that you need answers to. That's why you need a career coach. So that's my answer for you there. Okay. Speaking of which, I need to jump off. I can't believe we've gone through 30 minutes already. If you like what you heard today and you want to work with myself and the team of trained career coaches at Work It Daily, you know what to do. We always give you a time-sensitive discount that's good for today. This code shuts off, so you've got to use it now, or you got to wait. You got to wait till the next time we offer it. But you can save $10 a month off our subscription. No setup fees, cancel anytime, instant access. Start working with us today. If not, that's okay. Just make sure you hit subscribe. You can come back next week and listen in. Eventually, you're going to realize you want to join us. I'm telling you, they always do. They always say to us, JT, they get inside and they go, why did I wait so long? And I go, I don't know. I don't know why you waited so long, but it's okay. You're here now. So we're going to get you one way or another. Then you're going to fall in love with us. But in the meantime, we're just glad that you stopped by here for our live session. Always glad to have you guys here. And have a great week. Remember this, if you want to win, you've got to work it daily, my Wid Warriors, okay? All right, have at it. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.